much. Keith, I know that you had several questions that had been sent in earlier. And if you want to go ahead and just kind of give us some questions, lead through the first question, and we'll open it up. I'm sure Ralph and Dana will be answering, but if you could also open the mics for Bill Hawthorne, who is Director of Engineering for CFS.
Bear with me here.
Oh, certainly.
Because I have to go down through the list here to find him. It's what's his name?
Will Hawthorne.
Okay, and I just asked Will to unmute.
Terrific. And then also Jonathan Williamson.
Bear with me. Whoops. Okay.
Carno Evans.
And Carno.
Hey,
Okay.
Hey, Kathy, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh no, you're good. And just I just wanted you unmuted in case.
Okay.
And Cliff Tate.
Cliff. Okay. I just asked him to unmute.
Terrific. And I just wanted to make sure that for the question portion that those folks were available to answer questions if need be. So if you'll go ahead and Keith and give us the first question and
and what I've done is I tried to take a look at all of the questions that were submitted, and I've rearranged them a little bit, hopefully from at least what to me sounds like a logical sequence. So the first one that I want to throw out there is, why are these roads being built as toll roads? Everybody says that we pay a lot of taxes, which we do. Why do we have to pay more to have our needs met by toll roads? Why can't we have these roads built with our taxpayer money?
You know, and on that one, I think if Will or Dana wanted to address that, but you know, we do have the two methods of building the roads, or at least funding at least two methods. Those are two of the most recognizable, using tax dollars, which are limited. And the toll roads provide another option of constructing needed roadways. But Will or Dana, if you wanted to answer that.
I'll wait, Kathy. I mean, we, Central Florida Expressway Authority, is a toll agency. That's the only way we build infrastructure. If for this to be a non-tolled expressway or highway, it would have to be built by another agency, kind of like DOT or a county or something like that.
Yeah, Will, this is Dana. Let me add to that as well. One thing to keep in mind, and Will's absolutely right, we're a toll agency, and so we are paid through the tolls that our customers pay to use the roadways. Part of the problem, and it's a much bigger picture, and some of the planners on the call can help us with this, but roads, as you know, are very expensive. And so what happens is, in the US, unfortunately, we have, as a country, not fully funded the infrastructure monies that we need through taxes. We've not kept up with the gas tax over the last 25 years. We've not kept up with, you know, increasing taxes that people pay through the, you know, the use of gasoline. Plus now you have electric vehicles who don't even use gasoline. And so what's happened is it's become a sort of a regressive revenue stream. And the problem is, whenever you get into a road like this, like an expressway or an interstate, those are typically so very expensive to construct, between the construction costs and the right-of-way costs, that it becomes a prohibitive to use gas money to build those. And that's why you see more and more toll roads coming up. So Jonathan or Cliff, if either one of you want to chime in on that, feel free.
To chime in, Keith, I've done the financial plan for Metro Plan Orlando several times. And so Metro Plan Orlando is the NPO for this area that they're responsible for setting the priority for.
Cliff, this is Kathy. I'm sorry, but could you move closer to your microphone, please?
Let me look at the minutes.
How can you hear me now?
Oh, that's much better.
Okay, yeah, it switched my microphone. But I just mentioned that I've done the financial plan for Metro Plan Orlando several times, and Metro Plan Orlando is the regional agency that's responsible for setting the priorities for the state and federal funds that are used to make transportation improvements in this area. And just as I think it was Will mentioned, or Dana mentioned, there's a huge shortfall between the amount of revenue that comes in for transportation and what the needs are. Usually it's in most places, they have about half the projected revenues compared to what the needs are. And so, Metro Plan Orlando actually looks to CFX to be able to build some of the larger, more expensive projects. And, one of the huge benefits from a transportation planning standpoint is that this does allow for the roads to be constructed, but it also helps control some of the demand. What we found is, you can look at it I-4, when the roads are free, they just completely fill up and are jammed full. The tolls actually provide another way to kind of encourage people to use other modes of transportation or to ride share or things like that. So it's really just due to a shortage of overall funding.
Keith, next question.
Okay, yeah, next question. Why is CFX insisting on running the toll road through the center of Poinciana on Cypress Parkway? Why not bring the road north from South Lake Toho along the east side of Reedy Creek and build a bridge crossing Reedy Creek to Koa? Or why not head the road south of Cypress Parkway through the Disney Wilderness Preserve?
Ralph, do you want to discuss that?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. The PD&E study and the concept study really were spin-offs, if you will, of previous and current adopted long-range transportation plans and studies that were done even before CFX got involved in this project. And it's always a difficult decision on where to site or put a project in location. There are going to be impacts. The Cypress Parkway corridor, I think, and Cliff, I think you were involved in some of these earlier studies for Osceola County going back to 2009, 2010 for the Southport connector. I mean, your beginning point was the intersection of Cypress Parkway and Pleasant Hill Road. And even before that, Osceola County's comprehensive plan had started identifying the need for new corridors to identify, the outer beltway of expressways in the Orlando urban area. And so it's a number of those previous studies that were conducted that located the Southport Connector project in the vicinity of Cypress Parkway. In the case of Koa, the right-of-way available along Cypress Parkway is 300 feet, and the available right-of-way along Koa is about half of that. So there would be significant community impact in trying to build this project along the Koa Street corridor just by looking at existing aerials and driving down that existing corridor. There are schools that are located along that corridor. So there would be significant social impact, as well as crossing Reedy Creek and the watershed there where no right-of-way currently is available. That's another advantage to the Cypress Parkway corridor, is that east of Pleasant Hill Road, there's existing right-of-way available to site this project. And then, of course, going even further south to try to go through the Disney Wilderness Preserve. You know, the whole purpose of doing these projects is to identify viable alternatives that minimize to the greatest extent impacts to the social, natural, physical, and cultural environment. And so it's you know, always a trade-off. When you have impacts, you need to mitigate for them. But if our alternatives emerge that, you know, do a better job of minimizing impacts than other alternatives, then the process dictates that those alternatives should be considered more viable. So that's, you know, kind of there are a lot of factors involved in corridor and alignment studies and siting projects. So I don't know if that helps answer the question. I know it's challenging to have this project come down Cypress Parkway, but again, the decisions were made previous to our efforts, and we're moving those studies forward. I don't know if Jonathan or anyone wants to add to that.
No, I think you covered it. Like you say, it's just kind of a question of right of way. I mean, you know, in the OCX master plan, they were analyzing two options. One went up Marigold to get to Poinciana Parkway, and you know, again, that's the same situation where there's only 150 feet of existing right of way on Marigold Avenue, which basically only allows for them to widen to 4 lanes. So it's kind of a matter of, you know, both with COA and Marigold only having 150 feet of existing right of way, whereas Cypress has 300. That's kind of the choice by default, you know, and what some of the, you know, the previous studies and representatives from Osceola County had determined in the past.
Okay.
Keith, next question.
Okay, yeah. Is CFX primarily interested in building a toll road to connect Florida's Turnpike to I-4, or is CFX interested in relieving the Poinciana traffic congestion?
Someone from
Do you want me to take that one, Kathy?
Sure,
Yeah.
please.
We're interested in both. The connection to, repeat the question one more time, Keith?
Yeah, and let me maybe rephrase it. Is, you know, what's the primary interest of CFX here? Is it to connect from the Florida Turnpike to I-4, or is CFX primarily interested in relieving the Poinciana traffic congestion?
We're interested in both. So the long-term goal is to get this to connect even past the Turnpike over to Canoe Creek Road. And the connection with I-4 is something that we discussed between all the agencies involved in something like that, Turnpike, DOT, and it was best suited that Turnpike take that on. They're an arm of DOT, and they can connect into 429. And so they are actually doing their PD&E study to complete that final leg to the west, to complete, you know, get Poinciana Parkway or 538 all the way up to I-4. And the Southport PD&E study is looking at an interchange with the Turnpike and even going past that to Canoe Creek Road.
Right, and Will, I'll add. This is Ralph. I'll add. You know, the master planning efforts from CFX. You know, you have opportunities to continue your regional connectivity and systems linkage even beyond Canoe Creek Road into an area of East Central Florida corridors area of Osceola County, and then beyond to I-95. So it's really the function of the expressway portion of the overall plan is really to, you know, have those regional trips on the expressway and taking those travelers and regional trips off the local roadway system and keeping the local road system for local access. So Will is absolutely right. CFX is interested in both.
Okay. Next question, and here again, we're going to start focusing in on the Cypress Parkway segment. Will traffic using the toll lanes going through the center of Poinciana be able to exit in order to head north on Pleasant Hill or Poinciana Boulevard? It was unclear whether the eastbound traffic using the toll roads only would be able to head for the Florida Turnpike.
So as I mentioned, the part of the concept for Southport Connector is to have an interchange at Pleasant Hill Road. And we understand the local traffic movements eastbound to northbound along the existing roadway, and in the reverse, southbound on Pleasant Hill Road to Cypress Parkway is a very heavy movement. And so we're working on some alternative interchange configurations that would favor those movements and allow them to operate a little bit more efficiently than they are today, or in any other alternatives. The concept study didn't really have an opportunity to get into a level of detail with the traffic analysis and operational analyses, but the PD&E study is doing that as we speak. We're working with the traffic consultants that are generating the traffic numbers, existing and future, and doing the operational analyses for the different configurations that we may come up with for the interchange. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it does, from the standpoint that number one, there is an intent to have a smooth linkage between Pleasant Hill and the toll lanes.
If we can do it and minimize or avoid right-of-way impacts, that we will do our best to come up with concepts that would do that would help favor those movements to the best of our ability, as well as continue the Southport Connector Expressway east across Reedy Creek. And it's a challenging location, and it's taking us a little bit of time to get creative juices flowing, so to speak, and come up with the alternatives that can be tested with the traffic.
Okay, and the other thing that I think I heard you say is that this is a work in progress, and that this PD&E is going down much more fine and looking at it much more closely than what
Right.
the previous work effort did. And certainly, if there are people who have ideas that would improve on this, you'd encourage them to bring them forward.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that in a lot of the correspondence that you're sharing with us.
Yes. Okay, and because that's a key point, because and I just can't emphasize it as much, that that intersection with Pleasant Hill and Cypress Parkway today is an absolute mess, and anything that can be done as far as improving that will be very welcome. But anything that gets done to make that worse is not going to be welcome at all.
Well, and again, as I mentioned, there are a lot of factors that are involved, including trying to minimize community impacts and avoiding, or minimizing right-of-way impacts in particular. So it's just a very tight location and challenging. So it is taking us a little bit of time. We appreciate your patience with us. We hope to have a lot of these issues resolved and available to present at our alternatives public meeting in October.
Okay, and the next question is right along the same line, and that is, today most of the traffic using Cypress Parkway heads out of Poinciana using Pleasant Hill or Poinciana Boulevard. How much, if any, of that traffic is expected to use the Florida Turnpike instead? What are the projected traffic volumes, and when will that information become available?
Yeah, we'll need to get back with you on that and consult with our traffic team members that are not on the call today to see if they can, develop the distribution of traffic and take a look at the percentage of the regional trips that will be on the expressway versus remaining on the local roadway network. And part of that really relates to, I think, one of your other questions will be, the additional access points to and from Cypress Parkway and the Southport Connector Expressway. For example, the slip ramps in the vicinity of Laurel Avenue, or the ramp configurations at Poinciana Parkway interchange. You know, we're looking at different scenarios that provide different alternatives to get on and off. And each scenario has a different effect on network traffic and how the traffic gets balanced, not just on Pleasant Hill and Poinciana, but on Marigold and Dover Plum and Koa. So again, all that work is in progress, and we hope to have answers just prior to our alternatives public meeting in October.
Okay, and that was exactly the next question I was going to ask, which is.
I figured.
Well,
I'm with you on your line of questioning.
okay, yeah. Where will the traffic be able to enter the toll lanes? Will the traffic be able to use the toll lanes to cross over Dover Plum intersection, avoiding the traffic lights, and still exit onto Pleasant Hill?
Right.
And Chief, just real quickly, I don't know if you're able to or not to get back to any of the slides, but if.
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm not as good at navigating the slides here using Zoom as I am at a meeting in the library. So I blame me for that.
Yeah, Kathy, we can do that. I mean, if we wanted to go to, I think it's slide 13. But the level of detail is really not there. It just really kind of shows some of the general locations. So, I think where Keith was going with this is, in fact, one of your suggestions was in relation to, or in regards to the slip ramps at Laurel Avenue. The concept study had an exit ramp eastbound off of the expressway onto Cypress, and then on the north side of the system, we had an entrance ramp. This is all west of Laurel Avenue. Well, I think your suggestion, Keith, was, can you look at flipping those? And so we're looking at that to see if there's a more of a benefit in having, the entrance ramp from Cypress Parkway, say between Poinciana and Laurel, so you could get on sooner. And then, but it's a domino effect. Then we have to start looking at all of the other ingress and egress or entrance and exits to make sure that we're providing access to the expressway, providing access to and from the local system, and we're doing it in a safe manner. If you have too many access points, then you start jeopardizing the integrity and safety of the facility. And you have what we call weaving sections, and you all have experienced this when you're driving out and about, and people are trying to change lanes or trying to exit while somebody's trying to enter. Those operations, especially at the speeds that you're traveling on an expressway, can jeopardize operations, and they're not safe if you don't provide enough distance. So we're considering all of those things as we lay out different alternatives and test them in the traffic models, and also draw them up geometrically on the aerials and make sure that everything can work. Does that help? It's very complex. It's a lot of work.
Well, and it does help. I think that to me, and I think to the rest of the people that have chimed in on this whole thing, is what's going to make or break this project as far as the Cypress Parkway segment of it. Because if we can come up with a schematic that allows the traffic, particularly from coming from Haines City and in front of Solavita, to get onto the expressway, to fly over Marigold Avenue and Cypress Branch and Dover Plum, that will help a lot.
Right.
Whereas if we constrain that traffic, what we're liable to do is end up sticking more cars onto those local lanes, which is going to choke things even more than what we see today.
Right. And we hear you, and we're working on different alternatives as we speak.
Okay, that really takes me down through the next several of the questions that I had. The one thing that I would urge everybody to keep looking at is the traffic numbers, both from Osceola County and from Polk County, are updated on a fairly frequent basis. And, I'll use the case in point is the traffic volume in front of Solivita from the time the study was originally done in 2016 until the current has gone up 41%. So it's important to keep our eye on the ball. And I think, just knowing what construction is taking place on Cypress Parkway, between Cypress Parkway and Haines City, I mean, there are housing developments going up left and right down there. And those people are all going to have cars. And I suspect that they're all going to want to, at some point in time, head to the east or head to the north.
Right. No, and that's a good point. And part of the traffic analysis, and there will be a separate traffic report that will be produced as part of the PD&E. I didn't really get into a whole lot of detail about what we're actually producing report-wise, but there are several what we call technical reports or supporting documentation that help us make our decisions, and the traffic is one of them. And in addition to looking at existing and future traffic growth, there's a look back at historical traffic and doing a trends analysis to see how much traffic has been growing. Part of that helps us understand how much more is it going to grow, but that and the land development and everything else that you mentioned. So that's all part of the process as well.
Okay, and I'll just throw out, because I've got scars all over my back from the early days. The original traffic study on the Poinciana Parkway was about 2,200 cars a day. And we're over 10,000 now and growing.
Right.
So, just judging from the history of Poinciana, it tends to outgrow even what the revenue estimates are. And then the other key part of this whole thing, and it has to do with the traffic, I think, is, where are the toll gantries going to be placed? I mean, it's pretty much assumed, I think, that the toll collection on the South Fork connector will be done the same way it's done on the Poinciana Parkway, which is that you'll drive through a toll gantry and you'll be automatically charged. The question then becomes how many toll gantries and when will they be placed? Where will they be placed?
And we don't have the specific answer for you tonight, but you do know that it is also part of the process. Once we get the traffic numbers adopted or approved, through the process, part of the traffic analysis includes toll revenue analysis and toll viability. So again, that's done independently of the PD&E study team. We're supported by CFX and their general toll and revenue consultants, traffic and revenue consultants that provide that information.
Well, and if I can just throw out there's a cause and effect relationship here. And I'll just use the example of where you get onto the 4-lane highway to go over Dover Plum and get off. If you're heading up Pleasant Hill, that's about a mile stretch. And if I end up having to pay, $1 or 50 cents every time I want to do that, you're going to cut down on the number of people that use that overpass, which is going to have a negative impact on your total toll revenue. And it'll also have a much more negative impact on the congestion on the Dover Plum local lanes.
And that's another factor to consider as we place all of the ingress and egress points.
Okay. Let me move on. And this is a hot button issue. The sound barriers, the presentation that was made on the Poinciana Parkway expansion included sound barriers being constructed by CFX to separate the Poinciana Parkway from some of the houses located next door to the Poinciana Parkway. There has been lots of discussion with the people from Solivita about the impact on the housing in Solivita by the sound created by the increased traffic. I believe that the Polk County has made the statement that they do not intend to construct sound barriers along their right of way. How about CFX? Would CFX consider putting sound barriers in there? And would that be part of the study, or what would cause that to happen?
It is part of the study. It's part of the typical PD&E study process. We will be doing a noise analysis that will be based on, the traffic. Actually, there's a methodology that is utilized in determining, what type of traffic would generate the highest noise. So that's usually a free flow condition, and that's just the way the computer models treat the noise analysis. Is factoring in conditions where traffic is moving freely, because that's the traffic that generates the most noise. And so in addition to that, the noise study includes identification of noise sensitive sites, including residential communities. Recreational communities are now considered land uses that are noise sensitive. Any outdoor recreation sensitive areas such as hospitals. And there are other land use types that are considered in the noise analysis. And so the models will predict from the existing noise measurements that are taken at the beginning of the noise study. We'll get what's called an ambient noise level. You go out with noise meters at key locations in noise sensitive areas, and it could very well be in near someone's backyard, or in a neighborhood. So we would actually want to work with the community once we identify all of the different noise sensitive sites that we have on the project, and we get ready to go out and do our existing noise measurements. I think it would be good to get some community input, and as far as long as they're technically sound, not to play on words, but we start with the existing noise, and then the computer models with the level of service, free flow conditions on traffic will then generate predicted noise levels. And so then we begin to look at those areas that would benefit from having a reduction in noise by using noise walls, sound barriers, or it's typically also called noise abatement. So all of that will be considered in the noise study. If the noise walls or barriers are technically justified, through the model, then we start looking at where should they be located. Where is the best location? Should they be on the expressway? Should they be located at the right-of-way line? And so again, I think we work with the community, we work with CFX on the most reasonable and feasible location for those noise barriers from a physical standpoint. And we also have to consider the interaction between, and not interaction, but factors such as drainage and utilities and other sidewalks and multimodal aspects that we have on the project as far as where we can put noise walls, driveway locations, side street access. Having breaks in a sound wall doesn't necessarily always yield the best results in terms of benefited receivers or those noise sensitive sites where a noise reduction is realized. So all of that, again, it's a complex process, but it will be done for this PD&E study.
Okay. Well, would it be possible to identify up front some of the key organizations or key groups within Poinciana that should be involved in this noise area? And coming, just looking at the map, I think the Poinciana homeowners or the Solivito Homeowners Association would probably be a good one to identify. Where are some of the houses within Solivita that might be the most affected by it, or neighborhoods within Solivita. Perhaps the Cypress Woods area, and certainly I think the Poinciana Medical Center area. I mean, that hospital is going to be sensitive to that too.
Exactly. No, that's a good point. And we will work with we have a sub-consultant or a member of our team that will be doing that noise study. So we'll pass that along. to them as they develop their methodology for conducting the existing noise measurements. And just, again, you need to make sure that, we're taking those noise measurements in the most appropriate location in order for the computer models to accurately predict the future noise. And so typically those noise sensitive sites and those noise measurements are taken closer to the road, existing road, than any other location, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Okay. The next question talks about the sight lines. And in particular, there are a lot of neighborhoods adjacent to Cypress Parkway where there are homes that look out over Cypress Parkway. And, there's a concern about the fact that, we're going to be building overpasses and that instead of seeing tree lines looking out to the north from their homes or to the south from Cypress Woods, that they'll now be looking at overpasses. Is there any consideration there as far as aesthetics? And let me ask the question, will the overpasses be concrete or will they be green dirt-filled berms like we have today on the Poinciana Parkway?
For the overpasses, for the bridge structures themselves, the bridge types is really going to be a function of the span and the span arrangements. In all likelihood, they would be, the bridges themselves would be concrete structures. The elevated sections of the expressway or the roadway portions, if you want to go to the slide that has the typical section or the conceptual rendering. I think that may be the one right before this one. Yeah, so if you just go back one slide. Oh, no, actually it's slide 12.
This
Yep,
one
that
here?
one. Yep, that one. So there we call these mechanically stabilized earthen walls that would hold up the expressway in the center. And so those are also made of concrete, but as you've seen in other parts of the expressway system on 408 and on Wekiva, there could be aesthetic treatments. It's all a matter of, then factoring those into the cost estimates. And again, that relates back then to the toll viability and toll revenue forecasting. But when you get to a side street like Marigold or Laurel or Dover Plum, the actual span would be an open bridge structure, obviously to allow movements underneath, all the turning lanes and potential U-turns to get from one side to the next. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. The question I have asked of Polk County in particular in front of Solvita is what about the trees that right now separate Cypress Parkway from the properties in Solvita? And
Right.
the answer I got from Polk County is that it depends on where the trees lie relative to the property lines.
Right.
If the trees lie on the Solvita side, then by all means they will stay there. If the trees lie on the right of way for the county-owned Cypress Parkway, they may in fact get taken down.
And our approach would be very similar. Again, we've mentioned several times that our intent is to develop this project within the existing right-of-way. So again, if there is vegetation along this project that is within the existing right-of-way, a lot has to happen in this 300 feet of right-of-way. You have to also remember, and I've mentioned it a few times, drainage is important, utilities are important, the slip ramps on and off to and from Cypress Parkway utilize a lot of that green space in between the outside travel lanes of the expressway and the inside travel lanes of the Cypress Parkway. Any room that's left over could be considered for some landscape vegetation, and working with Polk and Osceola counties. But again, that's something that will continue to evolve. And that'll be something that even carries into the design phase of this project.
Next question I have, and I only have two more, is why can't they build the expressway simply by adding more ground level lanes through the center of Poinciana and timing the traffic lights better? Why do they have to build the overpasses?
Well, you have to remember the functional classification or the use of the facility, the toll road, to have all of the lanes at grade on the same location, it would be very difficult to separate the toll lanes from the free access lanes, in addition to the interaction and turning movements at the intersections. So typically in scenarios such as this, the expressway portion needs to be elevated, and the at grade, the local facility, is more at a local grade level to provide the local access to adjacent land uses. And remember, the expressway, I know it's the 3 miles through Cypress Parkway and through Poinciana, and it's challenging for us, but it's a one piece of a larger regional system connection to major facilities such as I-4, the Turnpike, and as we mentioned, even beyond to I-95. So the expressway itself functions or is classified more as a limited access toll road and with regional connectivity, whereas Cypress Parkway is the local arterial that provides access to local land uses.
Okay, and then the last question I have is, rumor has it there are cemeteries of indigent people in the path of the expressway that will be covered over. Is that true?
Part of the analysis for a PD&E study is to address the potential for cultural resources, including historic structures and archaeological artifacts. And so there are some recorded archaeological sites in the vicinity of the project, the study area. And so we are developing, we have a team member that will be doing the cultural resource assessment survey and coordinating with the State Division of Historic Resources in Tallahassee, as well as other agencies. There's, as you can imagine, some sensitivity in identifying the locations of some of those sites from a protective standpoint. The tribal nations are actively involved in the cultural resource assessment survey process. And it's all tribal nations, not just those that may be located in Florida, but throughout the United States. For every project, tribal nations get involved in reviewing the cultural resource assessment survey. So I'm not at liberty to really divulge because I really don't know what we have or what we don't have, but I can tell you that we will be looking at that specific resource as we do on every project of this nature.
Okay, bear with me here a second, because I'm trying to find slide 9 and I don't have my slides numbered, so.
Okay, are you looking for the environmental?
If you look at the lower right corner, you'll see the slide number. It's small down in the lower right corner to the right of the Central Florida Expressway Authority logo.
You want to look at the area east of Pleasant Hill Road through Reedy Creek? Is that where you're headed?
Well, and which slide would that be?
That would be slide 14.
Oh, 14. Okay, then I think I need to go forward. Let me try to go forward. Environmental constraints.
That one, I'm not sure what you're actually looking for, but that one might be a good one, the environmental.
Okay, let me go back to it then.
Are you going to try to point out some of the areas to me?
Well, I wasn't going to, but if somebody would like to, I mean.
Well, again, the Division of Historic Resources in Tallahassee has what they call a master site file of recorded archaeological and historic sites. And we do have a couple of recorded sites that are in the vicinity of the project east of Reedy Creek, and those areas will be further evaluated as it's in an area that's common to all the alternatives. So, but that's just only one piece of it. Once we identify the preferred alternative for this project, not just along Cypress Parkway, but east of Reedy Creek and east of Southport Road, the preferred alternative will also be evaluated and tested for potential unrecorded archaeological sites. So I would say stay tuned on that topic.
Okay,
And as we get through the process, that particular part of it will occur between the alternatives public meeting and the public hearing. We are advancing some of the analysis work in areas of commonality. In other words, where the area along Cypress Parkway and through the Reedy Creek watershed that is common to all of the other alternatives, we can advance some of that analysis work. And we're doing that.
okay. That concludes all of the questions that I have, that I remember from being asked or what have you. It's now about 10 minutes of 7, so we said the meeting was going to last until 7:30. What I'd like to do, I guess, there's only 28 people who have logged into the meeting. If somebody would like to raise their hand, I could unmute them and then they could ask a question. If that will not work, the other alternative is if you could send me a text message, I could unmute you. Just tell me your name, and my text number is 561-236-4090. And if that doesn't work, I could try to unmute everybody who wants to be unmuted. Any suggestions as to how we should do this?
Well, I do see that John Wolver has his hand up, and let me ask if you would also unmute the mic of Cliff Tate. He had muted himself. He needed to mute himself and couldn't unmute himself again.
Okay,
So if you could unmute him, but I do see that there's a hand raised from John Wolver.
Okay, just a second here. Let me try to get on my list.
And then after him, Dom Rimzius.
Okay, I just tried to unmute Cliff.
Okay, and he's unmuted. And
Okay.
then you could go next to John Wolber.
John Wolper, bear with me. Don't see John. I'm coming up here. Okay, I see John. And asked to unmute. John, were you able to? Yep, it looks like you're unmuted. And I can see likewise Don has gotten it. So I'm going to ask Don to unmute himself too. And
This is John.
Yep, go ahead, John.
This is John Wolber. My question was, the Osceola Expressway has sections of untold in the middle of, from time to time as you drive along it. Could you do something like that through the center of Poinciana? So basically from the toll road to Pleasant Hill, could you make that an untolled section and then have tolls on going across the south side of Lake Toho, put tolls in there?
I don't know if Will Hawthorne or Dana wants to take this, but again, as we mentioned before, these projects are supported by toll revenues. So there's a balance, I'm sure, between and thresholds for determining toll viability, even in sections of a project. But Mr. Hawthorne, would you like?
I guess the question would be, how did they justify that on Osceola Expressway? And does maybe Osceola County have to kick in some cash for the, to make up for the neglect to build a road in the beginning to help offset the tolls?
Hey, John, it's Will. You hit the nail on the head there. Osceola Parkway is actually a county-owned facility, so it has tax revenue that is able to supplement what the tolls don't cover.
So could you talk to Osceola County about helping you out here? Give them a bulk rate?
And this is Keith Latham, and you know, if I can just add something, many years ago, before I moved to Poinciana, we used to come to Disney all the time and then go up to 528, and then all of a sudden they put this exit onto the turnpike called the Osceola Parkway. And when that first opened up, it was great because I think they charged us $1, and we got to go all the way from the turnpike into Disney. But as that area grew, particularly that area that is untold, they constructed the loop and they constructed a whole number of intersections with traffic lights. And, you know, the drawback to that is that it takes you forever now to get to the constrained area of the Osceola Parkway where that toll booth is. Those traffic lights are not necessarily coordinated, and it takes you a long time to get from the turnpike into that area.
I'd build it the same way. I just don't put a toll booth on the slip lanes.
Well,
put a toll booth at the bottom of Poinciana Parkway and put a toll booth at the beginning of the Lake Toho bypass.
Well, I think that was a question I was asking earlier, and that has to do with traffic and revenue study, but I think that's something they need to consider.
I think it's something that would conflict with our bond covenants. I'm not aware where we've ever done that on our system.
You don't have a bond for this one yet, so you could change the covenant.
Well, and I can give you an example of Poinciana Parkway right now. There's a toll gantry between Koa and Marigold. There's no toll gantry between Koa and Cypress Parkway. I personally, because I live in Solivita, get to ride from Cypress Parkway to Koa every time I go there and not pay a toll. Whereas the same people that get on at Koa, they pay the same amount as I do when I get on at Cypress Parkway. So the answer is, it depends on where the toll gantry is.
So I think you might want to remember that when you do the toll revenue forecasting, it's a system-wide effort. And as projects are developed incrementally, and again, Will, you can jump in on this from a policy standpoint, you know, the toll locations are evaluated as each segment of the system is cobbled together. But your revenue forecasting, I'm sure, is done on a system-wide basis from the beginning.
Right, Ralph.
Right. Is the mic open for Mr. Rimsius?
Yes.
Hello, this is Don Rimjes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I had a question. The first question I have was, who funds the reconstruction of Cypress Parkway, CFX or Osceola County? In other words, you literally have to completely rip up and remove and move Cypress Parkway when this project is constructed. And does Osceola County taxpayers have to pay for the reconstruction of that road that, if the tollway wasn't there, would remain where it is with no added cost?
Right. And we saw that question, I think, came in just prior to this presentation this evening. So the cost estimates that were prepared in the concept feasibility mobility study were along the Cypress Parkway segment were all inclusive That is to say the Expressway and the Cypress Parkway segment were included in the cost estimates for the project. And we're continuing with that approach in the PD&E study. Now, in the case of the Polk County segment, we're working with them and coordinating with them now, as they have indicated they're ready to go into the design phase for their widening portion of Cypress Parkway, which would basically build the 2 lanes eastbound. But they're on hold right now until we get a little further along in our project, so that we make sure that we're coordinated on the type of facility that they're going to build, so that we can minimize any impact in the future in having to reconstruct that portion. But in the Osceola County portion, because of where the existing lanes are located, we are looking at reconstructing that portion of Cypress Parkway as part of the Expressway project. And that cost is being included in the cost estimates that we're preparing.
Okay, and the reason why I asked that question was there's a very significant bottleneck of local traffic between, I guess, the wider areas between Cypress Parkway and Marigold, and Cypress Parkway and Pleasant Hill. Probably a little bit less than that, just going through Dover Plum. But if you look at that roadway of Cypress Parkway at Marigold, you're going to, especially after Polk County widens both those segments on Marigold and Cypress Parkway to 4 lanes. You'll have 2 4-lane highways. Hello? You'll have 2 4-lane highways feeding on that western intersection of Cypress Parkway and Marigold. 2 4-lane highways feeding into a 4-lane highway. So there's obviously a pinch point there for traffic at that intersection of Cypress Parkway and Marigold going to Cypress Parkway. And then likewise on the eastern segment where Cypress Parkway meets up with Pleasant Hill, you now have 2 lanes coming down Pleasant Hill, and you also have 4-lane highway on Pleasant Hill. And very shortly, we'll have a 4-lane highway from Poinciana Boulevard. Both those highways feeding into 2 lanes. So we'll have 4 lanes compressing down 50% to 2 lanes on that segment. And it's a 1.7 mile segment. So the question becomes that segment, that 1.7 mile segment between Cypress Parkway and Pleasant Hill and Cypress Parkway and Marigold really needs to be 6 lanes rather than 4. In fact, the bridge over Reedy Creek is already 6 lanes, and that 6-lane highway progresses for a short distance before it turns into a turn lane. That 1.7 mile segment, we're estimating the cost of reconstructing it with 6 lanes rather than 4 at somewhere around $8 million. And it probably would be less because the whole road is going to be reconstructed and it's not adding 2 lanes to an existing 4-lane highway. It's literally starting with a
No.
So my question is that being considered? In fact, I provided a typical section, the elevated section, the newer section that you're looking at, that has a 6-lane Southport connector elevated section over the 300-foot easement or right of way, excuse me. And it appears that a 3-lane Cypress Parkway is possible from a space standpoint in that 1.7 mile segment. And can that be considered? Because I think that would go a long way in addressing the local traffic backups that occur and will become worse with the no tollway. One of the reasons they'll become worse is the intersections are more complex going underneath viaducts or underneath the overpasses, and they're wider and they have longer times between traffic signals.
It's notes that come across, Jim.
Yeah, there's some background noise too, I think I'm hearing. Did you have more to add, Don?
Yeah, that was the key thing.
Okay. Well, I know that you provided some information through the project studies website. Kathy had sent it, your list of questions to us just before this presentation. I believe you had some attachments. So I personally haven't had a chance to really look at those yet, but I did read the questions and I've listened to you, explain. We'll need to look at the information that you're providing to see if we can make it work. Again, there's a lot going on in this corridor, and that particular piece between Marigold and Pleasant Hill does have a lot of traffic. We'll need to coordinate with Osceola County in terms of any potential restrictions or limitations that they may have in terms of providing a 6-lane Cypress Parkway. But, in addition to that, we still have to accommodate the slip ramp access. We have to accommodate drainage. We're in this particular area. We have the Reedy Creek tributary and open canal system that we have to work out a solution for in terms of the drainage. And again, trying to keep this project within the 300-foot right-of-way becomes even more challenging. But what I can tell you is that we will look at the information that you provided. I think you provided even a long-range estimate for the cost using FDOT's long-range estimating program, which leads me to believe that you're in the business. So we'll talk, after we take a look at the information that you've provided and see if it can work. But again, we need to coordinate with Osceola County in terms of any lane restrictions, and then just make sure if it physically fits. That could be a challenge.
Right, and one other thing I wanted to mention was when you look at Pleasant Hill, from a local road standpoint, the unique topology of Florida and in this locale creates this huge pinch point. If you look at that Pleasant Hill and Cypress Parkway, there's no north-south non-toll road anywhere within 10 miles in either direction of Pleasant Hill. You have to drive 10 miles west to find any north-south road other than Pleasant Hill. And I don't even believe you can really drive east of there because there's very few roads going in that direction. So literally a 20-mile wide east-west corridor of Central Florida funnels all traffic from the south of Cypress Parkway down one 4-lane highway. Just think about that for a second, and that's the stuff we're dealing with, and we're a bit concerned because Poinciana South that feeds into Marigold, there's probably only about 30 or 40% of the homes. I'm just throwing out a number, might be wrong, that have actually been built, and with the house construction, even in that location, it's being significantly been growing. So there's a lot of empty lots that are going to be turning into homes, creating more traffic coming up Marigold. And we also have, like has been mentioned before, if you look down Cypress Parkway west towards Haines City, there's several very significant subdivisions of land going in that are going to create probably thousands of new homes over the next 2 years. So the traffic coming down Cypress Parkway eastbound and going westbound is definitely going to be significantly higher in the coming years. But that's all I had, and I appreciate you listening, and I provided some information hopefully you can review.
Thank you, Don. We look forward to reviewing the information that you provided.
Okay, Pat, you had your hand raised for quite some time.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much for acknowledging. Pat Schmid. I've been a resident in Solivita for more than 15 years. And I have just a basic question, and maybe it's a little unorthodox, but nonetheless, I'm going to ask it. With all of the construction that has been going on in both Polk County and Osceola County, I know for a fact when I've purchased 3 new homes in Polk County in Solivita, I've had to pay impact fees. What are the counties doing with all of these impact fees that are allegedly supposed to be used for the infrastructure? And there's so much construction going on now on Poinciana Boulevard. I mean, you know, okay, they're widening Poinciana Boulevard to 4 lanes, but that's not going to help with all the houses that they continue to build.
Right, and you know, I think I'm gonna ask if Dana or Cliff wants to.
Well, and you know, this is Kathy, and I'll be
Oh,
happy.
Kathy, go ahead.
And
Okay.
I think, hey, Ralph, I'm sorry, my internet just hung up. I don't know if you were moving forward and answering that, or if you were asking for somebody else to field that question.
I was gonna see if someone else's voice could be heard.
I'll answer it. I mean,
Okay,
yeah.
Will.
yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, we unfortunately don't have anything to do with impact fees. Your best place to figure that out would be to check with the respective counties. I don't have a contact information or info person.
Okay, well, I can help you out there.
That's not the point. The point is, you know, why, you know, we're to this point now where you want to build this expressway, destroy the lives of so many people that have chosen Florida for their retirement years. And over the years, you want to do something like this now, but over the years, why is it that none of this has been done? And I understand CFX is a different entity from all of the counties and the state and everything else. The point of it is, you know, you're going this route, and it's just so invasive of our lifestyle. You're not even considering the additional construction that's going to take place here and all of the open land that sits on the north side of Cypress Parkway. And then my other thing is, you put up a couple of numbers for Kathy Putnam and someone else, and they were flashed so quickly that I wasn't able to write down the phone numbers. I'd like to get them when we finish this discussion, please.
Yeah, Keith, will you put it's the next to the last?
Yeah, I was gonna, I'll try to move that up.
Slide 34, slide 34.
Yeah, if you would put that up, and
Yeah.
Anybody who is on the meeting tonight, when this comes up, if you'd like to be, please take our information. You can email or call us. I am the public involvement coordinator for the Southport Connector PD&E study. So I would be the one to field any questions or comments regarding that study. My colleague, Kevin Kamara, is the public information officer for the Poinciana Parkway widening and extension projects. So if you had a question about those particular projects, you could contact him. But if you've got questions about Southport or even the County Road 532 widening that is currently being studied and will move into design later on, you could contact me about those. So here's our contact information. But,
thank you. I appreciate that, Kathy.
Oh, it's certainly, Ms. Schmid. And if you'd like to be added to the database for the Southport Connector study, please email me at projectstudies@cfxway.com. And that way, you know, as we have updates, notifications of public meetings, which in the course of this study, we will have 2 public meetings coming up. Our next meeting will be the what we call the alternatives workshop that occurs in the fall. That'll be, I believe it's in October. We are looking at having the alternatives workshop. And then in early 2022, we'll be having the public hearing for this study. So please email me and I'll be able to send out, you know, updates and notifications of meetings.
Okay, I believe it was your email address I did send a question to earlier today. But it's okay. It's pretty much been covered during this Zoom meeting. I'm looking for things to go forward. I have been in touch with our county elected officials in Polk with many concerns that I have about things here. And perhaps one of them with you folks would be because of this expressway, how is that going to impact our fire rescue station here on Cypress Parkway? And at what point does the expressway begin in relationship to the location of the center?
So our,
Fire rescue station.
right, and we understand that access to and from emergency services is very important, and it kind of goes back to the conversation we were having regarding the overpasses. The one at Laurel in particular is very close to the fire station and the hospital. So, you know, providing access to and from Cypress Parkway, and as well as Southport Connector with the slip ramps that we were talking about earlier, is something that we're continuing to evaluate and make sure that you know, we work closely with Polk County and their fire services and the Poinciana Medical Center to make sure that they're satisfied with the concept layout as we move forward.
And it seems as though over the past several years, it didn't seem that Laurel Avenue was a road to anywhere, but now it's apparent that it's going to be integral part of the expressway. I was under the impression that Laurel was only an access road to Solovita's maintenance department and for landscape purposes. Does that road go anywhere at this point in time, or is it a?
That's the entrance to the fire station.
It is the entrance to the fire station, so I think that's what gives it somewhat of an elevated emphasis.
That is why the overpass is being constructed there, so that the fire station can get in and out along the local lanes of Cypress Parkway, just the way it is right now.
I'm talking about the dirt road on the opposite side of Cypress Parkway where Solovita has stuff. It's not the fire station at all.
No, but that would just be the north end. That's the north end of Laurel. The south end of Laurel is the driveway to the fire station.
I realize that. I'm just saying, how is that dirt road presently going to be an integral part of the expressway, or are you talking about the south end where the fire station is and have no bearing on the dirt area where Solovita has construction things or maintenance equipment and buildings?
Just the way you get on and off. I mean, there's no change to that area. Laurel Avenue, if you look at Laurel Avenue in Poinciana, Solovita cuts through Laurel Avenue on the Polk County side because there's another Laurel Avenue down at Village 7 that ends into a watershed area, and then it picks up again by the fire station and goes the dirt road up to where our fire alarm people live. And then there's a construction area up to the north of that and some wildlife area. And then there's another extension of Laurel that cuts across Koa that goes up to the north in villages 1 and 2.
And unfortunately, years ago, when they did all of this construction, everything was dead ends. And that's why we're in the predicaments that we're in nowadays, correct?
Yeah, no, it's a mess, but yeah, no, the reason for that overpass in the plan of the Southport Connector is exactly to let the existing fire station have access to the local lanes of Cypress Parkway, the same as what they have right now.
Which brings me to the question, so why do you have to go and build this expressway and really destroy the environment with such an expressway and highway instead of just widening Cypress Parkway to accommodate the construction that's being allowed to take place here and having done nothing with the master plan over the years?
Well,
I know.
I think the answer.
I know. I'm not asking you, Keith,
Okay,
because
yeah.
I thought you were a volunteer committee. I am asking the expressway people.
Well, again, we are conducting these studies based on comprehensive plans that were produced by Osceola and Polk County previously. The Osceola County Expressway Authority had a master plan that showed the location of Southport connector, had all of the projects, Poinciana, Southport, the Northeast connector, and Osceola Parkway extension as part of their master plan.
How far back?
The Osceola County Expressway master plan was adopted, I believe. Cliff, you might know the number. I think it was.
It was about 2012,
2013.
2012, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah.
not very long ago. Well, not very long ago.
But again, that was based on, the previous adopted comprehensive plan for Osceola County that was adopted in 2005. There was also the Orlando Orange County Expressway Authority, which is now CFX, had a project called the State Road 417 Southern Extension, which actually had new corridors coming from 417 in the vicinity of 528 in the airport, Orlando International Airport, down through this area of Poinciana and Osceola and Polk County and tying into I-4, which was the genesis for the Osceola County Expressway Authority Master Plan. But again, those previous CFX or OOCEA studies were again based on long-range plans at the time, master plans, in coordination with the counties and regional planners.
Yeah, and I have to interject here because we are starting to run out of time, and I've got Robert would like to get to ask a question, I believe.
Yes, sir. I'd appreciate it. My name is Bob Berry, and my concern's been talked about tonight. And like many things, it's part of the study. So I understand that. But I want to express my concern. My wife and I live the second house in from the northern fence line of Soledad. So my neighbor's house is probably 10 feet from that fence. And we were concerned about the proximity of the road when we moved in. But because of all the trees and because the road is so far away, we found it to be fine. But now you're taking out all the trees and you're shoving that road right up next to this fence line. So we definitely are going to need some noise abatement, or it's not going to be livable here.
That's something they're not considering.
Well, and Mr. Berry, this is Kathy Putnam. Thank you for your comments. And as Ralph had indicated, there is a noise evaluation component to this study. And should the project move into the production phase, into design phase, there's an even more complex or involved noise analysis that's done in that process as well. So we do hear you and we do want your comments. I think I know right about where your home is. So we appreciate that, but we do thank you for your comments. And like we said, the noise evaluation is part of the study.
Yeah, we're on Milano Road, so we butt up right next to the fence line.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. And as I mentioned, when I was answering these questions earlier, we'll start the process by identifying the noise sensitive sites, residential, commercial, recreational, and other land uses such as the hospital. And then we'll be conducting existing noise measurements so that we can calibrate the models that are used to predict future noise based on free-flowing traffic conditions. And then once we have all that information and we understand, where the benefits will be for potential sound barriers or noise walls, or perhaps even vegetation, if we can replace some of the vegetation in some areas. But again, there's a lot going on this corridor, but we understand the concerns, and we will be evaluating all of those aspects.
All right, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys all having the meeting for us.
Thank you, sir.
And if you have any, follow-up questions or concerns, again, my contact information is here. Please don't hesitate to email or call.
Thank you.
Okay. And, we're right about at the closing right now. When I close down this meeting, it's going to ask me to take the recording and to put it into readable format. I'll be doing that. And then what my intent will be is to upload it to YouTube. And I will make the YouTube URLs available to everybody via the Nextdoor forum and also via the PRFSC website, so that people can review this meeting in its entirety. And I want to thank everybody who's helped us out from CFX as far as answering the questions. I want to thank everybody who has logged into the meeting, and particularly those who have submitted the questions in advance, and those that asked the questions at the end of the meeting. If I can just add my personal opinion on this thing, this is an ongoing process. This is a study as far as the Southport Connector, and it's imperative that people who have concerns raise those concerns at this point in time, and that we have opportunities to let people from CFX listen to the concerns and respond to the concerns. Nobody's ever going to please everybody all of the time, but they will certainly try. Any additional comments, Kathy?
No, we just thank you very much for hosting this meeting and giving us the opportunity to hear from the community. We would just, as you've heard this evening, quite a bit of this information that you're seeking is under evaluation now. And we're still in the study process for the Southport Connector. Please realize that, again, this is all part of regional planning and transportation for the Poinciana area. As you saw tonight, we were talking about 4 distinct projects that is that they're really meant to improve mobility for the Poinciana area. So Keith, thank you very much for posting this to YouTube, so others are going to be able to see this and see how this is one of multiple projects coming to Poinciana, and hopefully getting people around this area faster and giving them a smoother commute and improving mobility for this area. So thanks very much.
And Keith, before you close out, I would also like to express my thanks to you and to members of your organization. You know, we always appreciate public comment that is thoughtful, that is, you know, very meaningful, and you all have done that, and you've expressed your comments and your concerns very well, and we do appreciate working with you as the study moves forward. So
Okay.
I want to thank you and all the members of your organization for the time that you're taking to work with us in helping us, you know, develop the best project we can.
Okay, that being the case, then I'm going to stop the meeting at this point in time. And hopefully this is going to be the start of more conversations, so that by the time we get this project ready to go, it's accepted the input from the public.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Keith.